Hello, everybody. My name is Marcus. I'm going to be doing my presentation on United States culture and its four dimensions that I'm going to be presenting on, and it's high and context cultures. And I wanted to go over each one, defining them as quickly as I can, just so I can get that out of the way for you, as to understand what I'm going to be talking about. We're going to be starting with individualism. It's the belief that you work on oneself, that you are the sole proprietor of your own contributions and your own successes rather than having to rely on your family or your friends or even your business partners. It's the idea that you are the sole collector of your own benefits. You are your own benefactor. And then we're going to go into masculinity, which doesn't solely rely on being a woman or a man, being male or female, or anything under the sun. It's mostly how you are seen masculine or how people see themselves in terms of masculinity and femininity. Then we're going to be going on to long term orientation, which is basically the influence of the past influencing your actions today and in your future. That's essentially what it is in layman's terms. And then the power distance, which is the belief of, I guess, not just authority, but also the act of how much power you have over another and how great the distance is between one another, like a Gartner or a CEO of a company. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, I'm going to begin into first, which is long-term orientation, which is the past um, influencing our future. But in America, compare when I look at the statistics off of hotfed/insights.com, it states that the United States has the lowest score out of almost every country I have looked at. It has a score rating of, 26, which is relatively low when you're talking about how other countries regard themselves and how their past influencing their future. And I think it's because our country hasn't really been around that long, and honestly, we're very low context society overall, seeing as how we like to be on our own, which will play into my next point in the next dimension of American culture. But relatively speaking, it is shocking how American culture does not rely on long-term orientation. Going on to individualism, which plays into that, it's America actually is on the opposite spectrum in terms of long orientation score, which is one of the highest scores out of comparing to most countries, which I've compared it to Canada, China, and Japan, which is a 91 is insane. Um, it really has to play in, like I said, to our low context culture where we really like to keep short relationships as us keep moving along, as keep growing as an individual, which I guess has always been taught to us at a very young age, and it's what's contributed to most of that, I believe, the advancements into our society. Whereas, which is pretty like I like to believe that, or no, I know that most of the advancements that we've made in America is much greater in the time that we have had here than any other country. I mean, we only been here in the United States for about what, like 200, 300 years. We basically made some incredible advancements in that time. And I believe it has to do with the individualism and the low context of constantly advancing, constantly moving on to new relationships and creating new inventions of sorts of that way. But I guess we can go on to the next point, which is um, masculinity, which has truly is truly bizarre because as a culture, although we are a low context, our masculinity likes to assume the opposite, that we're a high context. And although America seems to be pretty low in terms of masculinity, it's it's pretty safe to say that I believe that that's due to the fact that most of us are insecure and that most of us tend to build close relationships as to not have to build our individualism, which builds to our masculinity. Although you don't need to be individualistic and then also masculine. You can be either or, but I think it plays into each other where most people in high context situations seem to be contradicting each other. Is what I guess I'm trying to say is that the United States masculinity really contradicts individualism, which is pretty shocking to me. And I guess there's not much to say about that for right now, but I guess it plays into the power distance of it all, and where the power distance in America seems to mostly contribute to the fact that we have a lot of people in higher power compared to the people in lower power, which is pretty standard for most societies. There's a lot less people in power than there are not in power, seeing as to help balance it out. I guess it's to the power distance. One side is heavier than the mass group of others, which is lighter. But the fact is that America has a very vast increase in the power distance as to where um, a very high context culture for power distance is people who are usually in power seem to stick with people in power who have a higher power distance compared to people in lower power distances. And of course, people in lower power distances would group together in high context as to be in a group together as to make each other feel like a community and society in that way, where they don't have to feel ostracized, like in the way that they don't have the same authority as people that they usually work for. And I guess that's really the main point that I wanted to do is that all these are mainly connected, all four dimensions. And although would say that U.S. culture is high context, it's really a situational context. But that's all I have to say, and thank you for listening to my presentation as bad as it was. You have a good rest of your day.